Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha.
Street Fighter EX is one of the first Street Fighter games to be in fully 3D when it came to the arcades. Developed for the Sony ZN-1 arcade system in 1996 by Alica and published by both Alica and Capcom, the game itself received an upgrade called EX Plus in 1997 before getting a release on the Sony PlayStation in the same year called EX Plus Alpha, which is the review for today. But is the game any good? Let's find out. So, the game itself operates in a manner similar to 2D fighters, that much is a given. Like Alpha, the game uses special moves and super combos. The gauge can stack up to 3 levels similar to Alpha, which the name implies, but it also brings many similar mechanics from Alpha, such as air blocking, which has been a staple since, but also introduces newer mechanics like guard break, where pressing punch and kick of the same strength uses one super gauge combo level to perform, and when it is performed, it can temporarily stun your opponent for the most part, which gives you an opportunity to perform moves, combos, super specials, and of course, if you're really that sadistic, another guard break, or maybe a grapple. Cancelling is introduced, which a special move can be done after a normal move. However, in some cases when performing a special move, another one can be performed after the previous one, which is called a super cancel. And normal moves and special moves can also be cancelled into a guard break. And speaking of which, 6 buttons is pretty standard for a Street Fighter game. This is no exception. A punch and kick, each varying different degrees of strength, ranging from light, medium and heavy. No compromises, no changes. Still the same 6 button setup. In this game for the PlayStation, there is a standard arcade mode which has you play 10 stages against fighters in order to beat the game. However, if you go through the 9 stages before the 10th without losing, you will face against Shin Akuma. But if you lose within 9 stages before the 10th, you will be against M. Bison. Either way, beating the game, no matter the outcome of the bosses, you will be rewarded with cheesy video endings. I have a video of all of them in the description, so please do check it out. There is a typical versus mode where 2 players go head to head in 1v1 combat, but it also features other modes such as team battle, survival, practice and time attack mode. But within practice there is a mode called expert, which the player is tasked with performing 16 tests consisting of moves and combos from each character, and if you go through these trials you can unlock 4 characters such as Evil Ryu, Bloody Hokuto and 2 Cycloid androids being Beta and Gamma, and finally a watch mode where the player gets to witness a match between 2 computer controlled characters duke it out. The roster, in my honest opinion, is the most interesting factor because there is 19 characters from the get-go. That includes characters from games such as Street Fighter 2 and Alpha, and also featuring is characters that are original, but they would also appear in games such as Fighting EX Layer in the future. Graphically, aside from it being 32 bits, I will have to admit they kinda rather look blocky, but that blockiness doesn't really deter itself from the game, and honestly I would say it's fine for the most part, but the main focus on them is kind of prevalent than the background. But as you can see, the background is not 3D polygonal and it's more kind of a background PNG sort of thing, sort of similar to, well, you know, like the earlier Tekken games or Virtua Fighter for that matter. But however, this was due to maintain at least a nice solid 60 frames per second. But the more as I look at it now, it hasn't necessarily aged well. And finally, The music was written by three former Namco composers, being Takayuki Aihara, Shinji Hosoe and Ayako Sasso. The themes were predominantly written as jazz fusion with rock and electronic dance elements, which I'm actually going to play a few here because they really sound good. Now time to prompt the question, is the game any good? Competent, yes. Decent, yes. As a Street Fighter game itself, it's actually kind of a mixed bag. I mean, it has everything to offer as a Street Fighter game, but in some aspects, I didn't really think of this as much as something special. It can be fun, sure. I think the game kind of graphically is not the only thing that's fundamentally flawed here, especially where most of the models look like, well, rather blocky, and this is full 32-bit standard, especially for the PlayStation. But also in terms of pulling combos, some of it would not make sense to a non-player player if this was their first introduction to the Street Fighter series as a whole. But the game itself can go up to 30 to 20 quid for PAL copies. Not sure about NTSC Japanese copies because, well, I got mine with King of Fighters 97. But however, if you don't want to buy the game and you don't have access to a console, hint, hint. Anyway, that does it for now. If you like what you saw, remember to like, comment and subscribe if you so choose to. Anyway, I've been Saku. Take care.